if you count groups bigger than 10, I had 1,075 kilometers in the breakaway. So it was the highest in the race, but it's more fitting for me to go second in the category anyway.
Right. You like the consistency of the results second.
Exactly. And 22nd in GC, just add 2 more twos.
Welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. I'm Matthew Pioro, and with me, as always, is Matt Hansen. Matt, how's it going?
Real super. How about you?
Oh, I'm well. We have an early episode. We're sort of tinkering with our regular release cycle because who's our guest, Matt?
I don't know. Who was that today? A cyclist.
You just showed up to this recording without even checking the notes, checking the email?
Derek G, everybody, who's apparently a pretty good cyclist, so I've heard. We've seen for 3 weeks.
We have the rider that all of Canada and beyond Canada has been watching at the Giro with glee. It's with glee we watched G as he got into the breakaway. What was our tweet? A few things in life are assured. That's death, taxes, and Derek G in the breakaway.
Yeah, that was very clever. It's true too, right? It almost became, not funny, but you and I would text each other at 7 o'clock in the morning, whatever, Eastern Standard Time, and I'd be like, oh my God, he's in the break again. Expletive. Oh my God, here he is again. I think we have, 4 tweets like that, or 4 texts like that.
Exactly, text chains like that. So we are going to have an in-depth discussion with Derek G just a few days after he finished the Giro d'Italia and is just reflecting on the big race that was.
I would think too, like that, in the heat of all this stuff, of course, every day it must be surreal and, the attention he was getting more and more every day. But I would think once he leaves the Giro too, and he's home and he's sitting there and everything kind of becomes more real, right? Like everything's soaking in. He's like, holy crap, what did I just do? That must be a pretty neat time for him.
It is. And I was actually mulling that over in my planning as, do I want to talk to him right after the Giro? Do I want to give it some more time? Because like you said, he's going to process this. And I decided to get him, or I wanted to talk to him sooner than later and maybe get, maybe not the long-term analysis, but the short-term analysis just following the Giro, while it's still, a lot of it is still fresh in his mind.
I would think too for him and also the people around him. And it must be an interesting kind of time to figure out what's next for him, which is not obviously an overnight thing, but what kind of cyclist he's going to be. And he's going to be a breakaway guy. Could he become like a Wigginsy kind of GC guy? He's a bigger guy, but he sure kept his own with bigger for cycling, obviously. He kept his own with some climbers there. So it's, and we know he can time trial pretty well. So that's something to watch. No pressure.
No pressure. Yeah, we get into that in our conversation. One thing that really struck me is his absolute honesty. I playfully called him a liar at one point in this interview.
How do you possibly playfully call someone a liar? It's an Ottawa thing, you guys.
Yeah, right. I won't reveal too much about that, but his absolute honesty is striking, and his analysis of how things went throughout the race I find super fascinating. And we get into all the seconds, the details of every second place he had. That's 4 stages second. Also second in numerous competitions. He does break down why he was second in the competition for the most kilometers in breakaways. There's a certain way of how the Giro calculates what constitutes a breakaway and what counts towards that competition. So the actual amount of time that he spent out in front of the group, or the actual number of clicks he spent out in front of the group, are are higher than officially recorded, I would say. We get into those details.
What's interesting, too, is that, I mean, they use kilometers. They have to use some metric to do it, but they could also use time. And then, if you're in a breakaway on a mountain stage, obviously you're going to spend more time as in minutes in the breakaway than kilometers. But anyway, they need to measure it somehow.
Exactly. They need to set the boundaries somewhere on these competitions.
But yeah, a lot of seconds. Great seconds, though. Great seconds. But a lot of them.
The character of Derek G and why people took to him, I've been mulling that over. The breakaway person is, a special rider that we all love to watch. We root for the breakaway. Even though it's doomed, there's a certain optimism in the doom. And I would say Derek G's optimism is another part of his character that is why we like him so much. I think why the rest of the world came to like him so much. But I'm thinking of other breakaway artists who, captured people's imaginations like Jens Vogt. But I would say in terms of Jens Vogt, he's famously said, "Shut up, legs." But with Derek G, it was more of a process of discovery.
Please be quiet, legs. Legs, could you just quiet down, please? That's probably what he said.
No, I wouldn't say it was the overly polite Canadian. I would say it was more like, I don't know, legs, because this was his first Giro and he's discovering what is possible for him.
Well, in that nice video that Israel Premier Tech did with, Ruby West and his parents, I think he told his parents to the effect, I don't think you should come this year because I don't know if I can make it to Rome, on the day of Rome. So I thought that was kind of funny that, how can you expect? It's your first Grand Tour ever. That's fully understandable that he might not think he would make it to the finish, but he certainly did. He even gave it a bit of a go with 4K to go.
Right, on the final stage. And that's a totally fair assessment. Even, it doesn't matter if it's your debut or you're a seasoned professional. Look at his teammate, the rider that Israel Premier Tech picked as the GC rider for his team, Domenico Pozzovivo. He left after following stage 9. So you don't know what's going to happen. Remco Evenepoel, come on. So yeah, there's so much that could happen in 21 days of racing that's a fair assessment.
I think what you're saying about the breakaway is neat too, because, as cycling fans, we have to use math sometimes. I mean, we're looking at the 20K to go, 2 minutes. We're trying to figure out, can they catch them, can they not? And to get in a break, you really have to be kind of, a dreamer, right? Because we know the reality that the majority of breaks get caught, unless the peloton wants to let them go for a variety of reasons. But I think Derek G is just kind of like, F it, I'm going for it again and again and again. Which is, I think it's neat. Like it goes against that kind of formulaic kind of racing we've seen so much over the years. Granted, of course, towards the end of the Giro, only a certain amount of guys are going for those breaks, right? And GC teams are willing to let them go for a while. But I just like his chutzpah,
You make a good point in contrasting the breakaway, which is more of an ad hoc thing, I don't want to say spontaneous, but there's luck involved. There's all kinds of factors that happen on the day. And that contrasts with the riding for general classification, which is much more calculated, long-term planning. So we have these two things at play in any Grand Tour that, are part of the fun. And, well, our man, Derek G, was there on the swashbuckling breakaway side.
I thought it was funny too. You said about calling him a liar because we'd see his tweets a couple of times. I'm not going to break away tomorrow, and then it's like cut to, oh God, not again. I'm pretty done. This is my last chance for. I think it was the second to last. Maybe it was the Thursday when he was in the break, and he goes, "Well, that's it for me. I'm done. No more breakaways." And he turned on the TV on Friday. He's like, "Oh, come on, there he is again." It's like Jesus Christ. So yeah, it was great though.
I asked him about that, and he unpacks that a little more as to, the various levels of recovery and what allowed him to recover in some instances and just how his legs responded to various efforts.
I wonder if other riders too, knowing that Derek G had this propensity to stay away, if some guys who want to get a breakaway said, when that kid goes, I go with him because he's going to stay away. I wonder if he became like a moving target because he's going to stay away, most likely.
Well, let's not stay away from my chat with Derek G any longer. Here is the rider from Israel Premier Tech reflecting on the 2023 Giro d'Italia. Holy cow, Derek G. That's been my refrain for the past few weeks throughout the Giro d'Italia. And I know I'm not the only one. What was your refrain?
Sometimes the same. No, it's been a crazy 3 weeks, and for sure I didn't really believe it most of the time. So not dissimilar.
Before we get into details of the race, I want to set the scene. The Giro ended 2 days ago in Rome. Where are you now?
I am very happily sitting on my couch in my apartment in Girona, not riding my bike today.
What condition are your bags and or your equipment? Have you unpacked?
I'm working on it. Not quickly, but I'm working on it. So there's a bit of a bag explosion in one room, yeah.
And how are your legs feeling?
Oh, they've been better. I mean, it's similar to after any race where, it hurts or training session where it hurts to walk downstairs, but there's definitely a deeper fatigue that I'm feeling.
I've heard from other riders that if you just lie on the couch, kind of like you're doing now, right after a Grand Tour, you end up feeling worse than if you had kept riding a bit. Do you think you'll be riding soon?
I'll do for sure some coffee shop spins this week, but I think I'll just keep it to that. I actually race again on Sunday, but I don't think I'll be doing much between now and then.
What race are you doing Sunday?
The Brussels Cycling Classic. So I think the team just wants to see how I've recovered and how my body comes out of a Grand Tour. So not a race with massive expectations or anything, just to see how my body absorbs 3 weeks of really hard racing.
I was going to say, do they know where you've been the last 3 weeks?
No, it's nice. After that, I get to really shut it down.
Okay. How did you celebrate after your trip to the stage to collect the most combative rider prize? That was in Rome on Sunday.
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, the team flew my family and my girlfriend out, so I had people there to see after I went on the podium, which that was a really, really special moment for me. And then we went out for a really nice dinner. The team booked a place, and so the whole team was there, and my girlfriend and my family. And yeah, it was a really, really wonderful night.
What's the state of your email inbox or your direct messages in various apps? I imagine that throughout the Giro, you got more and more messages. Was that the case?
It was unbelievable. I mean, looking at it, I'm one of these people who doesn't like to have any notifications. I like to deal with them all right away and keep, my inbox and my messages very, very cleared. That wasn't possible. I mean, especially after stage 19 and after Rome, I had thousands and thousands of messages. I've gone through and read most of them now. There's no way I could reply to all of them, but some of them are very, very touching. They're all very nice messages.
I was going to say, how big has the Derek G fan club become, and how much did it grow from the start of the Giro to the end?
I mean, the Derek G fan club before was my immediate family, my girlfriend's immediate family. So it's been unbelievable to see kind of the outreach from fans from Italy and all across Canada. And you think of Canadian cycling as a pretty small space, but it's cool to see how wide it actually reaches with some of the messages I've gotten from all over Canada. Just people who, you never expect a Canadian that's not very heavily involved in the cycling community to be watching the Giro, but to get the messages I've gotten was really, really cool to see the reach of a race like that.
Yeah, that is interesting how certain performances do transcend the cycling community, the hardcores, the people who listen to this podcast. But yeah, I know you've been busy with interviews today from more mainstream media outlets. So it's impressive to watch just from my side, the attention you're getting.
It's overwhelming for sure. But no, I mean, I couldn't be more grateful for all the messages I've received. I feel bad because there's no way I can respond to all of them, but they're all very touching.
In a Grand Tour, it's common practice for GC riders to give up the leader's jersey, and by ditching pink, the rider can actually get more time for himself. Like there's no trip to the podium or chats with the press and stuff like that. You weren't in pink, but you were getting a lot of attention throughout the race. Did that added attention affect your recovery?
I think not necessarily the attention, just how high of a high some of those results were. I mean, some of the second places were crushing, but some of them were I was wired all night. I didn't sleep. You get 4 hours and then you have to go out and do 200 and something kilometers the next day. So I wouldn't say the attention was the main part. It was just how I couldn't shut my brain off with how overwhelming of a day it had been. And then you realize it's midnight, you're not asleep yet, and you think, oh, well, I got a big day tomorrow, so this is going to hurt.
Right. I want to talk more about recovery, but let's do a bit of a review for anyone who might have been deep in the woods for the past month. At the Giro, you were in 7 breakaways. You were second on 4 stages. By the time you crossed the finish line in Rome, you were second in the sprinter jersey competition, second in the KOM competition, second in the intermediate sprint competition, second in the competition for most kilometers in breakaways. That one surprised me, but that you were second there, but there you go. It seems to me that whatever duties or distractions you had after a stage, or even trouble sleeping, you still recovered quite well. Were you surprised by how well you recovered throughout the race?
Oh, massively. I mean, I expected every day I woke up feeling horrible, and I expected my legs to just not show up. So I was very pleasantly surprised when they kept showing up. The funny thing about the breakaway kilometers is that classification only counts groups of 10 or less. I mean, it's a good rule. It's to incentivize people to go into breaks on days where I guess the break is almost doomed, like a nailed on sprint stage or something like that. So if you count groups bigger than 10, I had 1,075 kilometers in the breakaway. So it was the highest in the race, but it's more fitting for me to go second in the category anyway.
Right. You like the consistency of the results. Second.
Exactly. And 22nd in GC, just add 2 more 2s.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
Yeah.
The numbers people must love this. Can you describe the levels of fatigue you felt? Like many of us ride and we know the feeling of sore legs. Maybe we take the stairs more slowly the next day. But how was fatigue affecting you?
It was really interesting to see because, and you hear this a lot from the pros who have done so many Grand Tours, is you think, why are they going out on the rest day and doing a hard ride or a long ride? I mean, the fatigue levels were ridiculous. My eyes hurt just being open, but I think that was from a lack of sleep. But when you'd start the race in the neutral and it's going easy, my body was a mess. I was incredibly sore, doing 200 watts, hurt so badly. And then as soon as we started to go hard again, then it was almost like a switch flipped, and my body was like, oh, okay, we have to do this again. And the legs started to come around. But one of the hardest stages was actually stage 17, which was all slightly trending downhill, because mentally I had switched off and said, okay, today's an easy day. So every time it went even remotely hard, I was in worlds of pain.
That is so interesting how your muscles and your body reacted that way. More comfortable going hard. So it sounds so counterintuitive.
Yeah, and just to be clear, not comfortable. Even if I say more comfortable, not comfortable. Still suffering out there like crazy. But the legs would definitely come around after a few efforts.
So I want to find out if you are a good liar in the poker playing sense of bluffing, or if something else is going on. And I think maybe it's the latter, just based on your what you were saying just now. And I say all of this because a common refrain from you after a big day was, well, I'm not sure I'll have the legs tomorrow. And sometimes you'd even say how spent you were. And there's that exchange between you and your teammate, Riley Pickrell, that Riley posted on Twitter. And there was a screenshot, and he's saying, go in the breakaway again. This was after stage 16, I believe. Go in another breakaway. And you're like, bro, absolutely no. And then you listed all the stages to remind him that you were in the breakaway. And then you said, I'm done. And 2 days later, stage 18, you're in the break. In the mountains, no less. So are you a master bluffer, or is it more you're figuring things out because it's your first Grand Tour?
Every single time I said I was spent, every single time I said there's no way I'm going in the breakaway, I fully believed it. Especially speaking with Riley there, that was after stage 16, and stage 16 was the only day I was in the break where it didn't make it to the line. We got caught, and I blew up so unbelievably hard at the base of this 20K climb to finish this stage. And it was the longest 20K of my life. And I got to the top and I was empty. I was as empty as I could possibly be. And I thought, this is the day that every breakaway stage has caught up to me. And if it weren't for stage 17 being an easy day, I don't think I ever would have recovered. But I truly thought I was done. I thought that was my Giro over. Now I just have to survive. And I was happy with it. I mean, that was a lot of days in the breakaway, and I just wanted to survive to roam from there. So no, every time I said I was absolutely wrecked, completely empty, totally done, I meant every word of it.
All right. Honesty as the best policy in whatever this game of poker was. I want to now ask you about a clip that your team posted of one of your directors. This is Sam Bewley. He was in the car, and he said the following, and it wasn't to you, but I still want to bring this up. Oh, and listeners, there's some spicy language, so if you don't want to hear an F-bomb and some other words, skip ahead 20 seconds.
I know it feels bad to shake your head at these guys, but that's fucking bike racing, man. They get it. They fucking understand. They'd do the same if they were you. Don't be afraid to be an arsehole for 7 kilometres of your life, mate. You're a fucking great guy, but 7 Ks of being an arsehole, that's not bad.
Now, this was to Sebastian Berwick. It wasn't to you, but you're a nice guy as well. Has it been hard for you to do jerk moves, or the sort of uncooperative moves that one needs to do in a breakaway and in a bike race?
I think I got quite, for sure, maybe I do too much work sometimes in the breaks, but luckily a lot of the time in the breakaway, it's been good cooperation from everyone. I think Seb was in a very unique position there because Sebastian is 59 kilos and he was in the breakaway with 2 big guys coming into a sprint, so you have to look at that situation. And even if you want to ride with them, you have to say, okay, these guys are going to beat me in the sprint unless I don't work. So I'm not going to work. And, luckily the situations where I've had to just sit on and not work, it's just been understood. There's an understanding between pros that sometimes, you just either your director's telling you not to work, or it's obvious that you're going to lose the stage if you do. So luckily I don't think, and it's the same with Sebastian Berwick in that clip. You don't really get too much abuse for it.
Mm-hmm. And the abuses I always find is more performative, right? They are bluffing in a way. The yelling, say, by an opposing team member is to get you to work, and they're just at their wits' end to try and cajole you or whatever. Exactly.
I think even people who are screaming at other guys in the break, they know if they were in that situation, they'd do the same, but they're getting, more desperate, and they need to try what they can try. And it's all bike racing. It's valid to sit on when the situation calls for it, and it's valid to give the guy a little bit of abuse if he won't work with you. So it's all part of bike racing.
Tell me more about your directors, Sam Bewley and Oscar Guerrero. Let's start with Oscar. Did he have any racing insights that really helped you during the race?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you're, especially on stages where it becomes more tactical, then it's definitely great to have guys like that, because you can't think. You're going to make dumb mistakes. And Oscar kind of holds a special place in my heart as a director, because he was the director for Gran Camino, which was my first big result in road racing last year. So he and I have a very good relationship. So it's really cool to have a guy like that in your ear. And aside from just the tactical side of things, it's incredibly helpful to have that motivation when you don't really have to think and all you have to do is suffer. To have a guy like that just screaming at you through the radio, it helps a lot.
It does, eh? Like there's a clip of him saying, like, all of Canada is watching, all of Italy is watching. Those things resonate as you're slogging up a climb.
Oh, absolutely, because there's nothing you want to do more than quit. It's absolutely miserable. So when you hear stuff like that, for sure, it motivates you.
And Sam, he was racing just last year. How did he help you and your fellow racers, for that matter?
I think the biggest thing that Sam brings is just his massive awareness of what it's like to be a rider, because he's just retired. He was a pro for, I don't know how long with Bike Exchange, and he just gets it. He gets what it's like to be a rider, to be in these situations, and he knows what to say. He knows what you want to hear. He knows what you don't want to hear on the radio. And it's just basically the perfect combination. And then he's also, I mean, as you've seen with all the clips online, he's got away with words. So it's really amazing. I mean, the first time I podiumed on stage 8 when I went second, he was in the follow car, and he was telling me when to do work with these guys, when not to, and then coming into the sprint, telling me how I should position for the sprint. I mean, he told me to be behind, which I messed up. But then, as I'm coming in, he'd be on the radio and saying things like, when was the last time a Canadian, podiumed a stage of the Giro d'Italia? That changes today. And I mean, it wasn't actually that long ago. It was probably Ryder or Swain's TTT, but in the moment, it's incredibly motivating. It really adds something to the legs, for sure.
Was there ever a stage when you were presented with a plan that you disagreed with?
I mean, there's certainly days where, okay, so the biggest thing for me was coming into a Grand Tour. I'm used to racing until I'm dropped, but coming into a Grand Tour, I had the hardest time wrapping my head around just sitting up sometimes before you're even really suffering. I remember on stage 7, it was 40 something kilometers of climbing, really shallow gradients to the finish. And I wasn't hurting at all. The peloton hadn't kicked it off. We weren't going hard. And the plan was for me to sit up and save it for the coming days. And yeah, they got on the radio and said, "Derek, you have to sit up now." And I remember being pretty frustrated, because it's hard to sit up in a bike race when you're not, on the limit. So, I mean, it paid off, because stage 8 was my first big result. And that plan actually changed quite quickly, because I ended up in the breakaway multiple days in a row, and eventually they come to my room and be like, "Okay, so today's normally a day where we'd ask you to sit up and save the legs, but it doesn't seem to be too much of an issue. So you can go ahead and try for the break again if you want." So it was quite the change. But I think having that knowledge of in the first week, you do actually have to save something to be able to perform later, and kind of, I guess, swallowing your pride and getting dropped before you need to. That was part of the plan that took a while for me to wrap my head around.
The average age of your Giro squad got younger throughout the race. Your GC leader, Domenico Pozzovivo, who's 40, left the race after stage 9. Mads Wirtz Schmidt, who's 29, not so old, left after stage 9 as well. And Simon Clark, 36, left after stage 15. By stage 16, there wasn't a rider older than 26 on your team. What was the team dynamic like with all that youth?
I think it was a good atmosphere and a good dynamic the whole race when everyone was there and at the end. But the atmosphere changed. It went from, I think, a little more professional to, because it also comes with more expectations, having guys on the team who are seasoned pros and they're there to get results, as opposed to, by the end, it was a bunch of young guys who were there to learn. And we were just, we were taking it to the race. We were attacking it. We were really showing ourselves and racing fantastically. But at the same time, it was a lot more, relaxed and we're all young. So it's definitely, it was definitely an atmosphere that wasn't the same as having an experienced GC leader like Domenico there, who maybe has some more pressure and has expectations to try and get a result. So it was fun the whole time, but for sure at the end, it was a different atmosphere. But I think that also helped us get results because, none of us really had pressure on us. And we said, well, we got nothing to lose. And we went out there and we attacked every day and we were rewarded for it.
Derek G., you were in 7 breakaways at the Giro. Getting into any breakaway can be really tough. It can depend on terrain, wind, your fitness, and who some of the bigger teams, especially those with GC ambitions, want or don't want out ahead of the bunch. Tell me about the art of getting into a breakaway and what you've learned about escaping.
So at the start, the way I got into a breakaway was, okay, uphill start, you go as hard as you can, and you hope you're in the front group at the top. But I definitely, to make the breakaway in following days, when maybe it wasn't such a hard start, especially stage 19 wasn't a hard start. It was a very fast, flat start. That took a little more subtlety. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of it comes down to luck. I did have quite the streak of luck to get into the break that many days, but it definitely is easier to blow up and miss the break if it's a flat start, because it takes so much energy to try and jump across or start a move versus just sitting in. On an uphill start, you just have to have the legs. That's all there is to it. So for sure, I learned a ton, and I was rooming with Simon Clark, who, he's the master of it. So to get to learn from a guy like that helped me a lot. But for sure, there's a lot of tips and tricks that I don't know yet that I'm still going to have to pick up on.
Okay, let's speed through some of your breakaways, starting with stage 8. Ben Healy won that stage solo. You came to the line with Filippo Zana and Warren Barguil. You took your first second place here. Tell me about your emotions at the time.
That one was, it was unbelievable. That felt like a win. First, because Ben Healy had been up the road for 60K and was in a different bike race and was on a level that none of us could touch. But second was that was my first result. And a result at the Giro was bigger than anything I had. And also just to be able to podium a stage at a race of that caliber wasn't something I was expecting. It felt like a win. I couldn't stop smiling after the finish line. That was for sure the most positive emotion I felt after the line. It was overwhelming.
And how do you feel about that result now? Has it changed any, 2 days after the big race has come to a conclusion?
No, that one will still always be probably the best feeling, second place for sure. Because I think I know what my expectations were at the time. Even if maybe now they've changed, I know what they were at the time. And I know the difference in that level of performance versus what I had going into it. So that one will always be, I think, the step up for me to another level of bike racing.
Okay, stage 10. You came to the line with Magnus Cort and Alessandro De Marchi. You had a big dig at about 1,500 meters left to go. Cort caught you. De Marchi then rejoined. He went. You and Cort followed. Cort won. It was your second. Once again, how did you feel then?
That one was more of a mix of emotions. The difference was stage 1 or stage 8, I guess. The first breakaway I knew was going to the line. They gave us a massive gap, and that was kind of like, today's a breakaway day. So when I made the breakaway, I knew we were fighting for the stage win. Stage 10 was full gas with those two to try and hold off the peloton because they wanted that to be a sprint day. So that one wasn't like okay, let's try and get a result. At first I was thinking, well, we're going to get caught, but let's see how long we can stay out here. And so once I only really thought about the win in the last 3K, and I thought, well, this is Magnus Cort Nielsen. He's known for winning from a small group and unbelievably quick. So I have to try something. And my hope was that DeMarchi would sit on Magnus Cort and let him close the gap. But it's bike racing and things never play out exactly how you expect them to. So I did get a small gap and I thought for a second, hey, you know what, maybe I can pull this off. But when we were caught again, I knew kind of my fate was sealed against Magnus, especially because I had just gone on the attack. So that one was closer, but at the same time, it wasn't a close sprint, you know? So I was happy with another to be able to get up there and replicate the result. And because that kind of confirmed to me, hey, maybe it wasn't a one-off, maybe it wasn't a fluke, but at the same time, I was a little devastated because the win was right there as opposed to the day with Ben Healy.
Skipping to stage 14, you were back in the break. It's a rainy day. There were actually many rainy days, but this finish was a slap in the face. Nico Denz won, and he raised his arms in celebration, his hand connected with your left cheek. Did he apologize?
He did. He's a really, really nice guy. I didn't see him because obviously you go straight into the kind of the crowd of media, and so I didn't see him until the next day. He comes running up at sign-in. Derek, man, I'm so sorry. Like, I had no idea. I didn't see you there. No, super, super nice guy. And oh, he was unbelievably strong that day. So no, that was very nice of him to come up and apologize.
Nice. And now, other than the hit to the face, what did you feel at the end of that stage? This is your second place. And I mean, I shouldn't answer for you, but I feel like it just from your demeanor after, this seemed like the biggest heartbreak.
This was for sure. I mean, obviously they hurt going second again and again and again, but this one was the closest. I think it was half a wheel, and it was, at the end of the day, I don't know that I could have done anything differently. So it's not that kind of a regret because Nico Denz was unbelievably strong. I mean, he started 900 meters to go or something on this uphill drag, and he still held me off. So I think that was my best opportunity to win, and that's why it hurts, because it was such a close finish. But yeah, for sure, I'll be thinking about that one for a long time. But that wasn't one. The Magnus Cort and DeMarchi day was one where I can look back and say maybe I should have played it differently. But in the end, it wasn't so close. The Nico Denz day was one where I don't think I could have played it differently, but it was incredibly close. So I think they both hurt for different reasons, but just being within half a wheel of winning a Giro stage, that was definitely the most heartbreaking.
Okay, I want to go to the mountains next. Now, I'll just reveal to you that my morning routine usually involved getting ready, or it involves getting my kid ready for school, and it became a running joke. Hey, is Derek G in the breakaway today? And my daughter, to her credit, would always bet on you. And when we got to the mountains, I'd be like, no way. And then I would check my phone. And be like, holy cow. There's that refrain again, holy cow. And anyway, so my daughter seems to know bike racing a bit better than I do.
Unfortunately, if she bet on me, I think she would have lost a lot of money.
Well, she once won $3 off of me on a bike race. She bet on Matthew Vanderpool, and I didn't. I was like, no way.
No, she knows racing.
Right. Anyway, I don't encourage sports betting, so we've stopped putting money on anybody. But the mountains, what was your relation? This is why I was surprised to see you in the mountains. But what was your relationship with really long climbs before you got to the Dolomites?
I guess we were strangers. I hadn't really done much. I mean, especially climbs of this length. Maybe the longest I'd done in a race was 20 minutes. So maybe I did one in Tirreno that was long, but it was really into the unknown for me. I was quite scared looking at some of these profiles, to be quite honest.
And so how do you feel about them now?
We're still in a shaky, we're in a rocky relationship. That I haven't suffered like that. I mean, to be completely gassed and to look down and see the little climbing profile on my hammerhead and see, oh, the next kilometer is only, 13% or just something absolutely ridiculous. It was pretty miserable, but I definitely exceeded my expectations by, I think, significantly more. Even on some of the mountain stages I went fourth, my expectations were exceeded way more than the races I got second, because those were the ones where, okay, this is a breakaway day and it's kind of rolly and it's built for a rider like me. Whereas in the mountains, to be up there and getting fourths and seconds was pretty far from what I imagined.
So your final, let's say, breakaway that culminated in a second, your fourth second, you were first over actually the famous Paso Giao on that day. But on the final climb, a rider from Colombia, Santiago Buitrago, at about 1.5 kilometers from the finish, attacked you and took the win. I think I was looking at the numbers. He's 15 kilograms lighter than you, maybe more. How did you feel in that finale?
It was interesting because it was a flat breakaway formation. So it was actually a group of, I guess, rouleurs or quite big riders that were in this break on the Queen stage, which was a funny dynamic. And then, of course, you had Santiago Buitrago. There were some other climbers there, like Carlos Verona, who unfortunately got hit by a car that day, a team car. So that was pretty unfortunate. But then, looking at the guys in the breakaway, I think Santiago Buitrago would have been pretty happy with what he was seeing. So to make it even into the base of the final climb with a gap was the only way I could have held him off. The gap just wasn't nearly big enough. And I remember my director on the radio going, come on, Derek, he can't close it. He can't close it, because he was holding me at about 10 seconds. I remember looking back and he's talking to his team car and I'm, mouth wide open, suffering, max heart rate, and I'm looking back, I'm thinking, no, he could probably close it. When he came around, I was just grateful he didn't give me any false hope. I mean, it's the perfect stage for him, sub 60 kilos, born at altitude in Colombia. And we were up at, 2,300 meters after a big day of climbing in the Dolomites. So I definitely wasn't in my terrain, but no, just to be able to go second on a stage like that was something that I never would have imagined going in. And yeah, it was actually really, really cool, especially the fans up there.
I mentioned earlier throughout the race, you were, talking a lot with media. You're getting lots of messages from fans, responding when you could. You're also chatting with riders in the peloton. Were you having more chats with other riders as the race went on? Is that a natural sort of evolution of a Grand Tour, or is that because you were just garnering attention within the peloton as well?
A bit of both. I mean, after 3 weeks of racing, I had friends in the peloton before that I knew, but not many from other teams. And it definitely, you're going to meet more and more of the guys over 3 weeks of racing, but it was definitely amplified by getting results. Guys I'd never spoken to and would come up and say, hey man, like really, really impressive riding or something like that. And that was pretty surreal to see, people who maybe I haven't considered my peers before because of their palmares just being so extensive versus mine, that them coming up and saying something like that, it really meant a lot. So it was really cool to see how the dynamic in the peloton changed after every stage I was in the break.
There was that one breakaway you were with Thibaut Pinot, and the television or the live stream showed you speaking with him. I think you made a little hand walking gesture, finger walking gesture. What was that chat about?
So that was an uphill start straight from the kilometer zero. So we had already been whittled down to 4 guys, and then we had to do the descent, 25-kilometer valley, and then the final climb. And Pinot was still attacking us. I think he wanted to make sure that he could get the KOM points over the top. And I was just thinking, does this guy want to do the whole valley by himself? So I just went up and I told him, hey man, And that's Thibaut Pinot. That's why everyone loves him. You know, that's his style of racing. He's aggressive. He's emotional. He races like, you know, like a real bike racer. And I'm a massive fan of watching him race. But when you're in the race, I just went up and I said, hey man, like, I think everyone here is good if you take the KOM points. Like, no one's going to contest you for them, but like, we have to ride steadier than this, because I think, I was definitely on the limit. You know, I was going to get dropped. So I'm 75 kilos. So I'm hoping he would have wanted me to help him ride the 25 kilometer valley. But
and was he receptive?
Yeah, for sure. He stopped attacking. I think because it was so. We were on the gas so much on that climb just to actually make the breakaway and to whittle it down, that maybe he hadn't realized that there was only 4 or 5 of us left at that point. You know, because we were all just kind of trying to get to the top as fast as possible and then kind of assess from there. So yeah, he was super receptive. And I was in breaks with him later. And yeah, I mean, it's just the way he races it. He was attacking the final climb all the way up, and it makes for unbelievable bike racing to watch. That's for sure.
Your contract with your team, Israel Premier Tech, is until the end of 2025. Is that still the case?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but yeah, I'm staying with the team until 2025 for sure. The contract is still valid even if I get big results. So yeah, and the team's been fantastic. I mean, not only did they give me the opportunity to race the Giro, but to give me the opportunity to go into breaks, and they flew my family out to the final in Rome. So no, they've been amazing.
I've heard that racing for 21 days with 2 rest days thrown in can really change you as a rider. And what I mean by that is your abilities. How do you expect this Giro might affect you from a fitness perspective?
I don't know, but I am very, very curious to see. I mean, that was the big thing that I was thinking about before I started getting results. I was thinking, even if I just survive for 3 weeks straight, what will that do to my body? What will that do to my profile as a rider and my fitness? And, you know, will that take me up another level? So that's still the case. That's still what I'm wondering. And I think now I just take it easy and let my body absorb all of that and then kind of reassess and see how things have changed.
And what about your role in future races? What opportunities do you think might come up because of this past Giro d'Italia?
I think for sure my main role is still as a domestique, but it is cool to see. I mean, I walked away with, I think, 1,000 UCI points, and I'm now ranked in the top 30 for the year, which is something I never expected. So I think for sure the team will try and see how replicable some results like that are, and to see where they race me and where they give me maybe a leadership role to see if I can continue to perform at that level. So I think I'll definitely get some more leadership roles. And it just depends on where and what kind of rider they want me to become.
Your mention of UCI points made me think of all the anxiety over points last year that was rife through, especially your team, as the UCI has introduced the idea of relegation. They could have used these last year, Derek. You're a bit late.
I don't think last year I would have walked away with very many, to be fair.
Fair enough. Yes. Last year you were on Israel Cycling Academy, and they did bump you up for, as you mentioned, Grand Camino. But yeah, it does take a while to for most people to get to the top levels of the sport.
Yeah, this year I have 1,023 UCI points, and last year I had a grand total of 81.
Oh, there you go. Do you have a sense of what you'd have to do to ride for GC? Or has your Grand Tour experience in breakaways just been so antithetical to GC riding that you don't really have any insights in that direction?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think for sure the confidence that I can perform day in and day out in a Grand Tour is there, which would be good for GC. At the same time, I think the physical demands of maybe sitting in the peloton and then doing a massive effort up the final climb would differ than just sitting off the front for, 180 kilometers at really high power. So if I really wanted to tackle GC, I think I'd have to change a lot from a physiology perspective, probably lose a few kilos and just change the kind of racing that I do for sure.
Does that interest you?
I think it does. Right now, I mean, I just love riding breakaways in the Giro. It's where I can get results and where I have the chance to win a stage. So if I definitely have to do some thinking about it.
What's ahead for you this season?
So I've got a race in a week in Belgium, and then I head back to Canada for nationals, which will be very nice, and then a nice amount of time in Canada. Hopefully, World Championships on the track if it's feasible to make the switch back to team pursuing. We'll see. If not, then probably all in for the time trial, and hopefully towards the end of the season, Quebec Montreal, which would be a major goal of mine to get to race in front of the home crowd.
That would be amazing. That'd be a nice cap to the season. This is the final question because it's a question that came up so much during the Giro, but birding. Are you going to be doing any birding in the next few days?
I sure will, because it's been a month of very much missing it. I keep a list of every new bird species I see, and I have 0 for May because I would see one in the race and I go, I don't know what that is, and I just keep suffering. So for sure, there's some catching up to do, and it's a good way to wind down.
All right, well, Derek, thank you so much for your time. It was a joy losing bets to my daughter because of you and watching the Giro. And yeah, I look forward to following the rest of your season.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
And that's the episode. It is edited by me, Matthew Pioro. I had help from Matt Hansen. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
That's it?
No snark. Just saying you're welcome. I mean, whatever. You want snark? I got snark. I got sass.
I'm just...
we can just get rid of this whole Derek G interview and just do me and you, but I don't think our viewers would like that. Viewers, readers, listeners, whatever they're called.
Our audience would not still be here. Also, thank you to editor Terry McCall. This episode of the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast is produced by Adam Killick. What else does Adam do for us there, Matt?
He also does the music.
He does the music. Thank you for the tunes. Thank you also to Ontario Creates for its support. Well, I need to take a break now too. All this Giro excitement. I'm a bit worn down. Maybe not as worn down as Mr. G, but I gotta put my legs up.
We should send him a fruit basket, I think, because we had a lot of very happy readers on our website the last 3 weeks. So we should probably send him a fruit basket. Maybe a protein bar. He's probably gotten a cycling nutrition from his sponsors, but definitely fruit baskets. Everyone loves fruit baskets.
All right. We'll get one to Girona.
Yeah. I'm sure some rotten apple by the time it gets there.
No, maybe does the service course do special fruit baskets for cyclists?
Yeah, that's good. We're thinking.
There we go. There's got to be that infrastructure in Girona, if there is anywhere on the planet.
Yeah, probably.
How to say thank you to another cyclist. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you don't already subscribe to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast, make sure you do so in whatever app you use to listen to your podcasts. Tell a friend to subscribe as well. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Ride safely, and we'll talk to you later.